My name's Gregory Lane. I'm the manager of Soho Family Centre, which is the local nursery and preschool.
And what's your role in the
Well,
preschool?
I've got two roles. I'm the manager of the nursery, but I'm also, for my organisation, which is Social Enterprise, and in Westminster, I'm the lead for arts and culture in the early years. Two jobs.
What first brought you to Soho, and what made you stay involved in the community?
Right. Well, I've known Soho all my life for various reasons, and I used to come to Soho when I was a teenager and older. But I didn't actually start working Soho until I was in my 40s, so I'd been working in my career in arts and culture in early years for a long time. And the manager who was here at the time, it was time for her to retire, her and her husband to retire. They asked me to come on an interim basis originally, just for a few months. But I was fascinated that there was a nursery in Soho, because even after all these years of coming and knowing Soho pretty well, I just wasn't aware. I knew there was a school, but I wasn't aware that there was a nursery, and a nursery with such a great history. I was kind of hooked straight away, and I think that's the thing about Soho as a place. It's a village. It really is a village. And I think there's an element of Marmite to it. I think some people feel that it's very busy, there's too much going on, it's purely for hospitality and entertainment, and they're mindful of it, maybe even respectful of it, but they're not particularly bothered. Whereas when I came to the nursery, I thought, wow, this is an amazing place to have a nursery, and Soho is an amazing place. There's something quite addictive about Soho as a village. Because I think, like any village, you get to know the people who live here, and the people who work here, and the people who run businesses here. And it's very diverse, because you have Lena's, which is a delicatessen, which is kind of the beginning of modern Italian deli, really, in London. And you have sex shops, you've got news agents, you've got everything. And I think the unusualness of Soho as a place, as a village, makes it very addictive and makes it very interesting, because people, a church is its people. And the people in Soho aren't boring. There's always something going on, whether it's in the night or the day, or in the early morning, or in the late night, or at lunchtime. There's always something going on. And the school and the nursery at the very heart of that community. The school has a very long history, goes back 200 years, really, and I think the school as we know it now is about 100 years. And the nursery is approaching 40 years. The nursery is actually in a part of Soho which used to be the baths, where people used to come and wash. There used to be 13 tubs in the garden, so some inside and some outside. And the nursery was a Sure Start centre in all but name. And then when Sure Start as a scheme, as a project ended, the London Early Years Foundation came in and took over the nursery as a social enterprise, which is really good, because it wouldn't have survived. We wouldn't survive if we weren't a social enterprise. We're not for profit. And that mirrors Soho in the sense that a lot of people in Soho are not for profit, if you see what I mean, in their ethics and their ideals. Yes, there are very wealthy people in Soho, and that's always been part of its story, certainly in the post-war world. But even the wealthy people or the poorest people in Soho are often connected by the experience and the value of being in Soho, which is that it is a genuinely diverse place with different people. People used to come here to live, and they still do, to live alternative lifestyles, to not live in the mainstream, but at the same time be at the white heart, the burning centre of London, of how people live and can do things maybe slightly differently, or look at the world in a slightly different way. And I see the nursery as totally part of that. And one of the great things about the nursery is we've been able to connect with our community and work with great artists, actors, photographers, filmmakers, the National Gallery, National Portrait Gallery, the British Museum, the British Film Institute, all of these things that are in our vicinity. And it helps my work. So the children of Soho are kind of a lab in the nursery. We work with these collaborators, and we work out projects and schemes and experiences for the children, for young children, that are of value. And if they don't work in the Soho lab, then that's fine, no harm done. But if they do work, then we can use that data information to influence things larger than ourselves, which in a way is the absolute mirror of Soho. There's a lot of myth in Soho. The espresso martini started in the Soho Hotel, but apparently because Naomi Campbell and Kate Moss were going out one night, they went to the barman and they said, I need a pick-me-up. I need a drink. He said, well, I can make you an espresso martini. Now, who cares if that's true? It probably is. It might not be true, but it's the mystery of Soho and those urban myths and those experiences which hold up this special place. And as I say, I see the nursery as very central to being part of that. And it's a great privilege, it's a great honour to be here, to be with the families. And like any village, many families like yourself go back a long way. There have been people from other places here, whether it be in the United Kingdom or the wider world, who've been here a long time. And I think some of the modern problems we have in society, in a way, Soho is kind of past that, because we've all been living together for a very, very long time and making this kind of society, this community. And we're sort of, some ways, we're a bit ahead of the game, I think, of how people can live together and make things work.
You kind of touched upon what people don't see about the community. Like you said that there's the kids and then there's a different part of their life and then all of the other places. So are there any particular memories that's stayed with you that's happened in the nursery?
Lots of things. I mean, where do I start with that one? I think the best one is to start at the beginning. So when I first arrived, the nursery was thriving, but I mean this respectfully, not disrespectfully, but I felt it was slightly a bit of a backwater. I thought, it's extraordinary there's a nursery in this place. It's very unusual, it's not expected. In a very urban, uber urban experience. And like I say, one that's based around entertainment and adult lives. So it's very unusual. So I thought we need something to really bring the nursery to life and to really advertise it beyond the village, because that's important, because a lot of our families, a lot of our parents have travelled to work, so they're addicted to Soho, but they don't actually live here. They might work in music publishing or fintech or graphic design or whatever, but they don't actually live here. And so I wasn't quite sure what to do when I first started those first few weeks, and then I was just scrolling on social media one day, and this is 10 years ago now, and I saw that a drag queen had been reading to children in a library in Brooklyn, and I thought, my God, that's perfect. Because it's immersive, it's theatrical, it's inclusive, of course, obviously, but it's also about how you read to children, how you bring stories to life, and what we call dialogical reading, how you bring something from the outside and you put it back in. So I asked some local drag queens, and in those days they either didn't understand what I was talking about or they didn't want to, because they felt that it wasn't safe for their reputation, and I understood that. And I'd set this big event up, and it was getting closer and closer, and I had no drag queen, and I was starting to panic. And then I managed to speak to a drag queen, actually she's from Bristol, and I said, will you come and read to the children? They said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And they came along, and we had the most phenomenal event and it really upset a lot of people. We had people from the news, from tabloid newspapers, which was perfect, because you're entering into the discourse. Whatever your personal feelings about that are, the nursery was at the centre of something and was having a discussion with the outside world. Plus, the children had a really great day. We all had a really good time. And from that, Drag Queen Story Time, although it started in that library in Brooklyn, by all means, it's just mushroomed around the world, and I think we're quite proud of that, because it's something that sort of started in Soho, where it should begin. It's the perfect place for where it started. So that was an exciting day. I think another memory that I should mention is when we got the children to make a film with the British Film Institute. And that was my idea, and I went to see them, but I had no idea what we would do. I thought, well, how can you make something of value that I've done? I've said, like, stand here, do this, because that's not what we wanted. And they weren't sure either, but they said, well, why don't you use stop-go animation and then get the children to, give them a theme and I thought that's perfect. So I said to a group of children, I said, how do you feel about going to school next door? How do you feel about going to big school? And we used the stop-go animation on tablets or cameras, as it was then. And they made a little film, which then they came into this office with me and we edited it together. And this is before TikTok or anything like that. It took hours. The children were like, no, I don't like that bit. You're like, well, we haven't got much time now, so let's make a decision. And we made a little film, and we screened it for the children and the parents in the British Film Institute, which technically is in Fitzrovia, but I always say it's in Soho. And I wasn't sure what to expect when we took the children to see their film, which was there were 6 30-second films. And the children went absolutely bonkers when they saw it. They were screaming, they were shouting, they were so thrilled. And it had such a profound effect on them and us because it was ethereal. They realised that somebody was listening to what they were saying and was entertained and engaged by what they're saying. Because when you're a child, a lot of the time, parent goes, and they just go blank. And the children pick up on that. They know that. They know that they've gone blank. And you know, that was the opposite of that. The children were really heard and they were really seen. And plus what they made was fantastic. One of the little scenes, it was very interesting because the children talked a lot about traffic and about the noise and the sheer volume of life that we sort of, although we were very aware of it, obviously you're that small, it's a big deal. And but I shouldn't say my favourite one because all 6 of them were truly brilliant, they really were, but the one that always stands out was a little girl who in our garden, she just got a little bag and the bag just went round and it ate things in the garden, so pens and, you know, rulers, and that's all it was. And it was amazing. But I said to her, and the little girl still lives on this estate, and I said to her, what's that to do with school, though? Why did you think that about school? And she said to me, well, when you go to big school, the children steal your lunch. And I said, do they? And she went, oh, everybody knows that. I said, I didn't know that. And she went, yeah, they do. So that fear, that anxiety, if you like, had sort of been able to come through her. I was able to talk to the headmistress next door, and on the first day of school in their assembly, she was able to say, there's no theft here. Nobody steals anybody's lunch. And it had the most perfect effect because it was creative and it was their voice, it was their value, but it also was about something bigger than themselves, but still absolutely about Soho. So I think they're 2 memories that I would treasure, you know.
What's something that you've seen evolve or change in Soho?
Well, do you know what? I want to keep this positive, but I will say something that I've seen in the 10 years that I've intensely been in Soho every day that I worry about is some of the independent stores closing down or being under tremendous pressure. And when they often get replaced, it always seems like they're replaced with a chain coffee shop. And I know that in some ways seems very kind of naive or just a bit petty of me. I really don't like that because, you know, the flat white, which is everybody has a flat white now, but it used to be just a white coffee with no or a cappuccino. And as I'm sure you know, on Berwick Street there, these 2 Australians, obviously coffee is a massive thing, I think, coming from their Greek heritage in Australia. They kind of reinvented the coffee, and the flat white is part of that. And now that just seems the norm to us. But they opened a shop called Flat White, and you know all this. And you know it's a perfect Soho story, and that's mushroomed across the United Kingdom, a flat white, and it started in Soho effectively. But it's important because that's about the locality and about innovation and about keeping things new. And if you replace businesses with another chain coffee shop, you're threatening the very heart of what Soho is because people come from all over the world to live in London, even, you know, business people, because they want to be in Soho. You know, they don't want to be in a city that's just like any other city. They want different things. That's why you're drawn there. If you want to invest in somewhere, you could, you know, what's going to make the difference between you investing in Los Angeles or New York or Dubai or Sydney? And you can say, no, I'm going to pick London because I love the lifestyle there, I like the people there. And at the very heart of that idea is Soho. So if Soho, and things have to change and evolve, sure, I get that. But if everything's going to just become the same, and if everything's going to become the same in Soho, I think we've got some serious problems. So that's something that concerns me, and I've definitely seen change. That the rush to fill a shop, I think us in the community here in Soho, we should be just saying, hold on a minute. We don't want everything to be the same in Soho.